know why we are always so quick to try and jump up and defend these white men when they aren't able to make the point that they want to make succinctly and eloquently. Hello and welcome to Queen Things. I am your host, KJ Miller, founder, lecturer, and content creator. And today on the show, we are answering the question, does anybody care about the arts? Because according to Timothée Chalamet, or Timothée Chalamet, no one cares. No one cares about ballet. No one cares about opera. I'm married to a classically trained opera singer, so you know I have thoughts on this. And I do feel like it has kind of sparked a broader conversation about the arts, not just ballet and opera, but how we support the arts in general, cinema, Broadway, ballet, opera, all of these things, live music, live concerts. I sort of want to touch on all of it as someone who is a lover of the arts, someone who grew up performing in the arts, someone who is married to an opera singer, someone who is sending my daughter to ballet class. Like, I am a person who cares about these things. I assume many of you are as well. So I kind of want to jump into that conversation. The other thing I want to talk about, perhaps briefly, we'll see when I get there, is this phenomena. It's not new, of women being judged by the things their men do. I'm thinking of Beyoncé. People in my comment section asking about Beyoncé and the Epstein files. Mind you, Beyoncé is not in the Epstein files, okay? Her husband is mentioned. She is not. People talking about Taylor and as it relates to Travis's nonprofit, his little charity and the misdeeds there. People talking about Hillary as it relates to her husband being in the Epstein files. It just seems like the women are getting a lot of smoke. The queens are getting the smoke for the things the kings are doing. And I don't really like to call men kings, but anyway, you get the point I'm trying to make. I want to touch on that a little bit as well. So we'll get to all of that now. Let's do it. Starting with Mr. Chalamet. Now, let me just say, I heard the same way all of you did the comments he made. I saw the clip that was going viral about he doesn't want to be in ballet or opera. He doesn't want to be fighting to get people to attend and to get people to care about industries that no one cares about. I saw that clip. It went viral. All of the ballet companies and the opera companies started clapping back and saying, posting videos of their theaters good and full, people giving standing ovations, all the people behind the scenes bringing these productions to life. They had a nice, good little clap back, and some of them are still clapping back, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love a clap back, and I love when the people in the arts get to show off the beautiful things that they do. But now we've reached the side of the argument, and these things always come full circle, where people are saying, hey, listen, maybe Mr. Chalamet didn't phrase it exactly correctly, but the point he's making is a good one and a true one, which is these industries are struggling. And I even saw a take from Stoobs. We'll post the link, where she really gave a long-winded defense of this man and made it seem like the point he was making was far more nuanced than we were giving him credit. So on the heels of that, I decided to go and watch this interview. Now, I did not watch the whole thing. My God. I did find the whole interview on YouTube. We'll include the link to that in case you would like to watch it. As I started watching it, I was immediately so annoyed. I cannot describe to you how annoyed I was by this interview. Something about, because it's, if you haven't seen it, it's between Timothée Chalamet and Matthew McConaughey. And I guess the vibe is it's kind of like an actors on actors, but an extended feel. And McConaughey's asking him all sorts of questions. It's a town hall. The audience gets to ask questions too. But... and is this unfair of me? I don't know if it's unfair. I'm just telling you what I thought. The whole thing felt, just so almost pretentious in the way both the questions were being asked and the answers were being given. It's hard to explain. I honestly just need you to go maybe watch a few clips and maybe you'll pick up on it, because every question that McConaughey asks, Chalamet's answer is like, oh, I'm so glad you asked it. Oh, no one's ever asked me a question like that before. Oh, you get it, man. Or like when Chalamet would then answer something, McConaughey would be like, yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. But no one has said anything yet. So how do you know exactly what he's talking about? Like, it just felt like they were speaking in some kind of like bro actor shorthand, where everything was like, oh, I get it. Oh, you get it, man. Oh, yeah, I get it. You get it. I get it. You get it. Oh, shut the fuck up. Sorry. Maybe I'm overreacting, but honestly, it felt like I have got to stop listening to this. I don't want to listen to this at all. But I had to make it all the way to minute 49. Fast forwarding, obviously, fast forwarding. I had to make it all the way to minute 49 to get to the clip. And I'm going to play it for y'all. Okay. So you can tell me, do you think there's some huge context that we are missing based on the clips that were then clipped and that went viral? Okay. So let's find it. And just to give you a little bit of context, they are having a conversation about kind of the state of films today. McConaughey starts off the conversation by saying like there was something of some project that Chalamet had done where the beginning sort of felt like almost like rushed, or almost like there was so much information being given up front, right? And then Chalamet answers like, yeah, that's sort of, it seems like the state of films today. So that's where we're picking up this conversation.
I've observed like a duo phenomena where the majority of stuff is getting pushed in that direction. I think I saw an article about a Netflix sort of production guideline, not for all movies, I don't want to speak disparagingly, but where they want their biggest action set pieces up front. The logic used to be you save your big action set piece for the end of a movie, and you save the fireworks for the end, but now they want something up front. I also think there's sort of a reverse thing going on too now. I don't want to speak for people that are here that are younger than me, where people are desiring things that are more patient and that pull you in. I just saw another article that says Gen Z is a bigger movie going audience than a millennial audience, you know? I feel like a fucking grandpa saying that. And, no, but point being, I think even like Frankenstein, which was like a hugely popular movie this year, I didn't think that pacing was extraordinarily fast or anything, but it pulled people in, you know? But it does take you having to wave a flag of, hey, this is a serious movie or something. And some people want to be entertained and quickly. I'm really right in the middle, Matthew, because I admire people, and I've done it myself, to go on a talk show and go, hey, we got to keep movie theaters alive. You know, we got to keep this genre alive. And another part of me feels like if people want to see it like Barbie, like Oppenheimer, they're going to go see it and go out of their way to be loud and proud about it. And I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or, you know, things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. Yeah. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership. But damn, I just took shots for no reason.
That's not a shot. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So, but on.
Okay, so there you have it. That's the clip. You hear him talking about the pacing, and do you sort of see what I'm saying? Where it's like, did he ever get to a fully complete thought in that little snippet? Like the thing that I played, I played the whole thing from when McConaughey asked him a question. It was only sort of a question about like the pacing of his project. I let him get his whole thing out about the pacing of film, the articles he's read about how Netflix is doing films, about Frankenstein, and then he jumps to, you know, he doesn't want to be in ballet and opera, and then he closes the thought out by saying like, oh, I just lost 14 cents in viewership, and then does his weird attempt at opera. Okay. So I let him get his whole thought out. I did not prematurely clip. And yet, what was the whole thought? That's question one. But point number one is, I don't think anybody is unfairly clipping, right? Like, I think to include anything before or after the part he says about not wanting to be in ballet doesn't really give you that much more context, if we're being honest. He took a pot shot for no reason. He didn't need to. And plenty of people could have made the point, and we'll get into it, that now people are graciously attempting to ascribe to him, which is the arts in general are struggling. And so what are we going to do about it? What are we as consumers going to do about it? What are actors and performers an entertainer is going to do about it? What should this next wave, this next generation of entertainment look like to continue to pull people in? That is a conversation that all of these industries are actively having. And that point could have been made far more eloquently by just about anybody else, I have to assume, because it was made so poorly here. And now people are trying to graciously ascribe more of that eloquence to him when it was nowhere to be found. And that is probably another of my issues when I watch that Stoobs video, which again we'll link. She is making a very eloquent point about the state of these industries that he nowhere makes. And I don't know why we are always so quick to try and jump up and defend these white men when they aren't able to make the point that they want to make succinctly and eloquently. Like, to me, sir, you have enough media training that is something you should be able to do. Or just don't attempt to make a point. Just talk about your little movie. But if you're going to attempt to make a point about not just your industry, but other performing art industries, then you need to come stronger, faster, harder, better. Like, you just need to be better at this if that's what you're going to attempt to do. He wasn't better at it. And now he's getting clowned all over the internet and clapped back by every opera company in America. And I think he earned that because, sir, what? Why? I don't understand why we're trying to clean this up for him after the fact. However, the broader conversation, the broader question is one that I'm interested in. Are the arts dying? And what are we going to do about it? What do we think is next for these industries? I think that's an interesting conversation, but I don't think people are being unfair to Timothée Chalamet. Sure don't. Surely do not. So did some quick research on the opera industry, the ballet industry, the film industry, Broadway, and live concerts. I'm just going to share some quick facts with you to kind of ground this conversation. And then I'm going to share my thoughts and opinions, but to just sort of ground the conversation, let's look at some quick stats. So we'll start with opera. So generally speaking, we have seen a decline in revenue and ticket sales in the American opera industry over the last several years. Specifically, the number of opera tickets sold fell 21% between 2019 and 2023, and revenue fell 22% over the same period. That said, some bright spots during the pandemic, we did see streaming that was made available for various opera productions really increase, which suggests that when these productions and these shows are made more accessible, you do see people still willing to consume, right? So it's not that there's no audience for these productions, it's that they have become less accessible, particularly when you think about things like inflation, when you think about the fact that it just feels like we're in a recession, even if we aren't officially in one. It would make sense that people aren't spending the exorbitant prices that you typically do have to spend to see these shows, but we are seeing some bright spots as it relates to streaming. Now let's pivot to ballet. Ballet, the story is actually a little bit brighter. So the global ballet performance market size was estimated at $1.4 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach $2.3 billion by 2032. So there is growth projected. That said, if we look at U.S. ballet companies, a report that I found, 2025 report from the Dance Data Project, revealed that 54% of the largest ballet companies drew a deficit in the 2023 fiscal year. So again, we are seeing that revenues are declining for ballet companies as well as opera companies, even though globally ballet is projected to grow. However, a bright spot from the New York City Ballet is that over half of ticket buyers in 2023 were under the age of 50. And we know part of the struggle for both opera and ballet has been in attracting younger audiences. So that was a bright spot for the ballet industry. Pivoting over to Broadway, I actually wasn't aware of this, but the 2024-2025 Broadway season was their highest grossing season and second best attended. So you often hear about people not attending Broadway as much either, but they just had their highest grossing season. And then when we look at live concerts, Live Nation has just been reporting like stupid growth over the past few years for live concerts. So for 2025, Live Nation recorded record fan attendance reaching 159 million globally, and revenue surged to 25.2 billion, which was far above market expectations. All right. So yes, we're seeing some revenue declines in city sorry, in ballet and in opera. But we're seeing revenue increases in Broadway and in live concerts. And even in ballet and opera, we're seeing some bright spots as it relates to streaming and as it relates to the ability to attract younger audiences. Finishing off with some quick stats in cinema. Cinema attendance is definitely down, particularly if you look at pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. Last year, the domestic box office brought in roughly $8.6 billion, which is down significantly from pre-pandemic highs of $11.9 billion in 2018 and $11.4 billion in 2019. So there has been, a pretty big drop off. And though we've seen year over year, some shifts up, some shifts down, generally speaking, we're far below where we were pre-pandemic. So the film industry, cinema, definitely struggling. So with all of that foundation laid, if we get back to the question, does anyone care about the arts? I have to say, my answer is a resounding yes. And that's not just Broadway, which we see growing, and live concerts, which we see growing, but that includes ballet, that includes opera, that includes cinema. What I think audiences are telling us is that they're willing to spend, and that's audiences across generations are willing to spend if it feels like the thing they're spending their money on is worth it. You've got to make it worth my time, worth my energy, worth my money for me to come put my butt in the seat and see your show, whatever that show is. And so I think the fact that both live concerts and Broadway saw record-breaking revenue in between 2024 and 2025 lets you know people are still interested. And interested in seeing good live entertainment. The fact that the New York City Ballet saw over half of their ticket revenues come from people under 50 tells you there is a growing segment of younger audiences who are interested. It just, to me, means you've got to figure out, what is it that people want to see? What is it that people are willing to pay for? And how do you reach those people? Now, this is a point that I think Timothée Chalamet again was attempting to make, but for whatever reason just is unable to make the point eloquently about how you market to people to get them interested in the thing that you're performing and the thing that you're putting on. And I think with Marty Supreme, we saw their marketing go everywhere. They were doing blimps. They were doing sort of Zoom calls, quote unquote, leaked Zoom calls. He was all over the place. And I think as a result, that movie did do very well for that studio, at least from a revenue perspective. It did well. And so I think part of the point he was trying to make is like, you've got to meet your audience where they are. And I think that that's true. Generally, I think that's not just true for cinema. I think that's true for opera and ballet as well. And I think that's why we are seeing more of those mediums on social media, on TikTok. You're seeing them sort of take you behind the scenes because they are trying to reach audiences where they are. But to me, to say that no one cares is just demonstrably false, and also was put in such an off-putting way when the point that he could have made around how do we make sure that a new generation of audience goers understands the beauty of these art forms, that's an interesting conversation. What's not interesting is to belittle or put down an entire industry of hardworking performers. And as it relates to accessibility, I will just tell a quick story about an opera my husband did years ago. So one thing you might not know about me is, like, generally speaking, I don't love opera unless my husband is in opera. If my husband's in the opera, it's the best thing I've ever seen. And on God, because I love watching him perform. He elevates the whole thing. Okay. But if he's not in the opera, I find most traditional classical operas to be not quite to my taste. Right. And that's perfectly okay. However, he did an opera years ago, a contemporary opera. First of all, the entire thing was in English, so I could understand all of it. It was a much more scaled back performance than like what you typically see at the Met. The characters involved were basically the four leads. He was one of the four leads, and maybe there were like a couple other people here and there, but it really was just the four of them pretty much on stage the whole time. The whole thing was in English. It was my favorite opera I've ever seen in my whole life. Now, how much of that is because my husband was in it? A good amount. However, I also genuinely enjoyed it. It was funny and, again, accessible. And I tell the story because I left up out of that room feeling like, oh, if more opera were like this, I'd be all over it. I would be all over it. But more opera is not like that. And so do I think there is work to be done for these art forms to find more ways to draw more people in? Absolutely. There are always going to be people who love the classic opera, the classic ballet. But there are going to be people like me who feel like I want to engage in this art form, but I sort of need it done in a way that is more engaging for me. And I think more of that work does have to be done. But I think if that work is done, we will see all of these industries continue to thrive. It's a matter of like, does someone want to do that work? And I would tell you the name of that opera, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. And my husband is nowhere to be found right now. He is somewhere in this house. I don't know where. So I can't tell you the name of the opera, but we'll try and drop it in the show notes. Anyway, all that to say, shout out to all of you in the performing fine arts. Let's get into topic number 2, which is just something that I have kind of had on my mind a little bit of late. This idea of, to what extent are we right or wrong for holding women accountable for the actions of their male partners? Let me just say up front, I am one of those people who very much was disappointed in Taylor's choice and partner when her partner was Maddie Heigl. And I was disappointed from afar because I wasn't even a fan at the time that she was dating that man, but, heard about it because everybody was talking about it and was like, ew, gross, hate that. And then after becoming a fan and then her writing about this man, spending half an album on him, I was like, girl, ew. So I am not a stranger to judging someone for their relationships. And generally speaking, yes, you are the company you keep. So I don't think it's wrong to be like, hey, if you like someone who is a terrible human, you should be judged for that, right? Like, Usha Vance, I'm judging you. Your husband's terrible and you continue to be with him. So ipso facto, via the transitive property, you are terrible. I do believe in that. But I also feel like, are we sometimes taking it too far? And I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth with that. But I will say, for example, Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and the Diddy of it all. People were routinely coming into my comment sections if I made a video about Beyoncé and asking me why I wasn't speaking up about her affiliation with Diddy. Mind you, the reason I'm not speaking up is because what affiliation with Diddy are we talking about? Are we talking about the fact that she quite simply knew this man? Because for all intents and purposes, that's all you really can say about her, is that she knew this man. She went to some of his parties. So just like every other celebrity in the 99s and the 2000s, they are not on songs together. They do not have a working production relationship together. So I'm like, what is it that you are asking me to comment on here? Simply her knowing who Diddy is. But of course, what people really wanted me to comment on was the fact that Jay-Z seemed to have a relationship with Diddy. And of course, there was that lawsuit about Jay-Z that eventually was dismissed in the alleged assault of a woman. It was supposedly Jay-Z and Diddy. Now, that assault case was dismissed. There were a lot of holes in the defendant's story. I don't need to get into all of that. I'm not trying to litigate all of that. I'm simply saying what people meant when they were coming into my comment section asking me about Beyoncé and Diddy was they wanted me to comment on really Beyoncé being married to Jay-Z's and his affiliation with Diddy. And it just wasn't something I cared to discuss because I care about Beyoncé. But I do understand that you are the company you keep. And so then I started getting another round of comments a couple weeks ago when the Epstein files were released. When are you going to comment about Beyoncé and the Epstein files? And again, I'm like, what are we talking about? Beyonce is not in these Epstein files, but Jay-Z is. So then I'm like, well, what does it even say? So here's a clip that I found from the BBC where they go into the mention. As far as I know, first of all, the Epstein files are a bajillion files. So I'm not sure this is right. But as far as I know, he was mentioned one time, and they talk about it a little bit in this BBC clip. So I'm going to play that very quickly.
Approximately 1996, Redacted resided with Redacted in Redacted. An unknown man abducted her from her home when she later awoke in the presence of Harvey Weinstein and Sean Carter, stage name Jay-Z. While Weinstein had inserted his fingers into Redacted, Redacted believed she was in Epstein's mansion in Florida. So that is the specific reference to Jay-Z. That doesn't indicate criminality. It doesn't indicate that a criminal charge is coming against Jay-Z. It doesn't actually specifically reference any abuse committed by Jay-Z. So what should we take from this inclusion?
We should take nothing from it, but the world will. And here's why we should take nothing from it. If, these are massive ifs, Anushka, if you wanted to be included in the Epstein file, you could have called the tip line and giving that information with your name in it involving Jay-Z, and they would have had that in there. Until that investigative file goes to the next level, meaning there are possibly a criminal charges, maybe a grand jury has been indicted, maybe he has been interviewed, maybe he's been investigated, there is nothing there. Just because this is the Epstein files, I want the world to understand this is nothing special. This happens every single day. Been doing this for 26 years. You would be shocked how many times we have clients, individuals, when I go and look at a criminal file where I see very random names mentioned in it, and the cops are just like, yeah, that has nothing to do with the case. We got this tip. We just put it inside of there, and no one ever knows. And so to answer your question, just being in the file means nothing, because out there, believe it or not, somebody watching this podcast right now, your name is in a criminal file because somebody has mentioned you and you don't even know it. So it means nothing at this point.
But that, of course, is there for the FBI to investigate, and there are no criminal charges.
So let's talk about that clip. But before we do, if you're watching on YouTube, you've probably noticed that I look completely different than I did when we started that clip. That is because the entire sound, the last basically 20 minutes of the podcast that I recorded yesterday, we lost. It got lost. It didn't record. And so I'm coming back to you a day later to essentially re-record everything that I talked about from that clip, everything I talked about after that clip. We lost a lot. And because I'm committed, I'm now back in front of you with a new outfit, a new wig, no makeup, and we're going to pick it up right where we left it. Okay, so let's talk about the clip. Basically, in that clip, it's a BBC podcast. What you're hearing the attorney explain is essentially Jay-Z being in the Epstein files right now doesn't mean much because there was no investigation. There was nothing but that, that one mention, which could have come from anybody, hasn't been vetted, hasn't been investigated. So to try and glean much from it just doesn't make sense. Certainly legally doesn't make sense. That said, do I understand people who feel like, listen, you're in there at all, then that's a problem. And also where there's smoke, there's fire. And when it comes to Jay-Z, there is smoke because now he's been mentioned here. He's been mentioned in the Diddy case. And we also know he has a bit of a sordid past. He's been accused of other things. So all of that to me equals him being a bad guy. I understand people who feel that way. But even if you feel that way, you feel that he is a bad guy. My question is, does that necessarily mean we should take issue with Beyonce? And I think I would need to know more personally, because what I would need to know is, okay, well, what did Beyonce know? Assuming even if Jay-Z did some of the bad things people believe he did, what did Beyonce know? Right? Because if I think about a person like J.D. Vance, who is an unquestionably terrible human being, the reason I know he's an unquestionably terrible human being is because I can see with my own eyes and hear with my own ears the things he is doing and saying. And so, the proof is in the pudding. I don't have to wonder about him being a bad person. He is a bad person. He is a white supremacist for all intents and purposes, certainly is happy palling around with white supremacists, certainly does not see the need to defend his own brown children against the racist rhetoric coming out of his own party. So given that all of his terrible qualities and the terrible things he says and does are out in the open, I can look at Usha Vance and know for a fact you're good with all of this. Because if you weren't good with all of it, you leave. You have that option. You're staying, which means you are not just complicit, but as far as I'm concerned, co-signing all of his terrible behavior. Same with Melania. Oh, Melania doesn't really want to be there. She's just there for the check. I don't care what she's there for. She's there supporting his terrible, inhumane, white supremacist ways. So I'm going to judge her the same way I judge him. When it comes to Beyonce, because the things that people are accusing Jay-Z of have not been proven, I can't look at her through the same lens and say like, oh, well, you knew all of this, that, and the third. How can she know if we don't even know? So I just, from my perspective, I understand holding people accountable for the company they keep, people accountable for the partnerships that they're in. But I think like I would need more information that we just quite simply right now don't have for me to draw some of the conclusions some of y'all seem very quick to want to draw about the Beyoncés of the world. Similar with Taylor, I've seen people say things about the Travis Kelce thing and his charity. If you didn't read the news, I don't even care to link it, honestly. But basically, his charity was found to have spent far more of the donations and funds on things like admin and salaries and whatever, and like a much smaller percentage actually went to helping, the causes that they were supposed to help. And so they've said they're going to rectify it and they're doing $1 million donation, something. I don't care to get all the details right. The point is, it looked shady. Okay. It looked shady. You're welcome to go read the details. And there are people saying like, well, if Taylor's okay with that, then I, look at Taylor differently. And again, my thing is like, well, but what did Taylor know? First of all, I think a lot of the things coming out about the charity and their dealings and what they did and did not donate are from over a year ago. So I don't know that Taylor a year ago would have been deeply involved in the things going on in Travis's charity. I don't even know if Travis was deeply involved in the things going on in Travis's charity, frankly. So again, I feel like there's like enough unknown there that while I see people trying to potentially drag these women along with these men, it doesn't seem like a conclusion I can reach. And I mentioned Hillary Clinton as well. Now, Hillary is a little bit of a different story. I will say, though, I very much enjoyed the clips I saw from Hillary's deposition, the way that Hillary was just so well and truly done with y'all. And she is the epitome of zero fucks to give, because every clip I saw was her rolling her eyes, sighing, deeply sighing, and making it very clear these questions are dumb and I should not even be here answering them because they don't have anything to do with me. And I do think a lot of the things being brought to her in those depositions were very clearly not about her and were about her husband. Now, Hillary's a little bit of a different case because in Hillary's case, Bill had many, many credible instances of women accusing him of, at the very least, sexual harassment. We're talking about back in his governor days, before he even became president. There were skeletons in that closet that Hillary was aware of when she signed on to be first lady, and so on and so forth, and throughout their marriage, because she stuck with him through it all. So I can't understand more so people being like, she might not have known about him, cavorting with Epstein. She may have. I can understand people giving her a little bit less leeway. That said, in those depositions, is it clear they were trying to make it seem as though the things they were asking her about were about her when in fact they were not about her? Yes. And I don't like that. Like, if the conversation is about what did you do, Beyonce, on Epstein's Island that, as far as we know, she ain't ever go to, or what did you do, Taylor, in these nefarious charity dealings, like, then let's have that conversation. If the conversation instead is, why are you staying with someone who we believe to be corrupt or shady or nefarious? Then we can have that conversation. But if we're having that conversation, then I need to know, first of all, what do we have as proof of these nefarious, shady dealings? And second of all, what do we have as proof that these women knew about it and were complicit in it? And I just think we don't have enough answers to those questions, particularly as it relates to Beyoncé and Taylor, for me to be drawing any grand conclusions, despite the fact that people love to be in my comment section asking me for my grand conclusions. Does that make sense? Okay, 2 more things I want to discuss before we get out of here. And one of them is basically a bonus because I didn't discuss it when I was recording this yesterday because I found out about it today. So y'all are getting extra content. And it is this. Do you remember? I believe it was the first episode of the year where I gave my predictions for which celebrity would come out as MAGA next. And I was wrong. I think I predicted Craig Conover of Southern Charm, who, by the way, if you're watching Southern Charm, I am so done with that man. I am so beyond done with that man. It's honestly, I haven't finished the most recent episode because all of the microaggressions against Vanita, largely coming from Craig, are so hard for me to stomach and watch. So that's an aside. However, the latest celebrity to come out as MAGA is Katherine Heigl. Katherine Heigl. I saw a TikTok saying she showed up at an event in Mar-a-Lago hosted by Laura Trump. Who's Laura Trump? I don't know. One of the Trumps. But she hasn't been on a red carpet in 2 years. And now she shows up at this event just to make sure we are all clear. It's some pet rescue event. I don't care if it was a pet rescue, alligator rescue, bird rescue. Putting the word rescue in it doesn't make it less Trump affiliated. It doesn't make it less MAGA affiliated. You got dolled up, you got your hair done, and you went on down to Mar-a-Lago. You're MAGA. And you know what? I'm happy about this because I feel like there has been this quasi-redemption arc people have been sort of kind of trying to form around Ms. Heigl because, as we all know, she got written off a Grey's Anatomy and kind of like also blacklisted by Hollywood because Shonda was like, I don't want to work with anybody like Katherine Heigl. She is not the type of person I want on my set. And now of late, there kind of has been this redemption story out there that she just is strong-willed. She just was being a strong woman. She just was speaking up for what was right on set. And I will just say it never quite sat right with me because now, do I know Shonda Rhimes personally? No. But do I feel as though I've read enough about her and read enough of her own writing to feel like she's not the type to quite simply just shut someone down just for having an opinion? I've never gotten that. I've never gotten that. And if you listen to other people who have worked very closely with her, including Ellen Pompeo, Kerry Washington, Viola Davis. If you listen to other women, Sandra Oh, they talk about how empowering Shonda Rhimes is. So the fact that there was literally only one person, one white woman attempting to make the narrative that, oh, I wasn't the problem. The problem was the powers that be, aka Shonda Rhimes, didn't want me to speak up for myself and defend myself and set my own boundaries. It never quite sat right with me. Well, lo and behold, she's MAGA. And so everything she said to me at this point holds no water, because if these are the people you are happy to pal around with, or these are the people you're happy to show up on a red carpet to be around, and maybe it's the only red carpet she's been invited to in a while. I don't know, but we haven't seen you on a red carpet in 2 years, and this is the one you show up to. Tells me everything I need to know about you and confirms what I already really in my heart of hearts knew to be true, which is Shonda had every reason to get you up off her set. And here we are 20 years later, Grey's Anatomy still going strong. I don't know how. I'm not still watching, but somebody is. Shonda's still collecting that check and you are not. So, but there you have it. I thought it would be Craig Conover. It was Katherine Heigl. And before we get out of here, I do want to shout out an article that I read recently on Substack from the account Behind the Femme. The title of the article is 1,000 Women Told Me How to Stay Hot in Your 30s. And the writer begins by saying, I'm somewhere in my early 30s asking chat best SPF for your face at midnight, like a woman who has finally criminally decided to show up for herself. Something happens at the clock strike of 30 that makes you stop performing and start actually caring. I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, so surely I can do anything, right? In the most vain spirit, I'm on a mission to be the hottest I've ever been by 35. Okay, that's the lead in to the article. And it kind of caught my attention because she polled 1,000 women, not influencers, not, Marie Claire, Cosmo magazine, just 1,000 regular girls and readers of her Substack. What are the things that you did to achieve your mid 30s glow up? And then she ranked them according to like which answers got the most votes, like were cited the most times. And what interested me was, so the number one item was retinol. So like, yeah, a bunch of people said you got to get on your retinol game. But the number two most cited tip was leave the relationship that is aging you. And I thought that was so interesting that apparently so many people of this 1,000 women that she polled specifically cited leaving the relationship that is aging you, because it is something that I have seen with my own two eyes for multiple of my friends who divorced in their 30s or left a long-term relationship in their 30s. I'm talking about long-term. I'm talking about someone they had been with for 8, 9, 10 years, finally in their 30s getting out of it. I'm talking about people who had kids with these men and experienced, glow up doesn't even really do it justice. I've seen these women take on new jobs, start new businesses, find completely new forms of athletics and exercise that they love and become like much stronger. I've just seen these women really step into themselves after shedding the weight of partners that aren't good for them and that truly are aging them. And that does make you feel hotter, younger, better, stronger. And because I've seen it with my own two eyes and now seeing how many people in her informal poll have cited it, I just would like to offer it up to you. I'd like to offer it up to you because I will say in my own experience, while I don't have a relationship that's aging me, I'm in a very loving and healthy relationship with my husband. I did have honestly what felt like a toxic relationship with the previous person who was attempting to buy my company, Minted Cosmetics. And I can't say too much about him due to the non-disclosure agreements, but I essentially was partnered with this man for almost a year trying to get a deal done. And he was so toxic. And eventually that deal fell apart. And thank God it did. The reason it actually fell apart makes it sound like it was something that happened passively. That's not true. I walked away from the deal and I had to do that. And it killed me to do it because I thought in walking away from the deal, I was killing my brand and that Minted would shut its doors forever. And I was prepared to do that because that is how toxic that partnership was. It was not just weighing me down, it was nearly killing me. And so I had to walk away. And when I did, what I can tell you is the version of myself that emerged, so much happier, so much more fulfilled, so much funnier, so much lighter, literally lighter. I have also lost a fair amount of weight, but lighter just in spirit, in tone. I feel like my steps are lighter. I'm not stomping everywhere. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a testimony, really. That's my experience with this. No, it wasn't a romantic relationship that I had to walk away from, but it was a partnership to a degree. And I was very scared to get out of it because I felt like, I need this person in order for me to continue to be the person I am, the founder, the CEO. I had so much wrapped up in it. I didn't want to watch my brand die. But I got to a place where I was willing to let my brand die rather than stay in that toxic bullshit partnership. And I emerged so much better and stronger because of it. And so that's my experience. And I also have seen with women that I love who have walked away from toxic relationships, the glow up that comes afterwards. And so I just want to cite that and share that in case any of you are ruminating on, should I be in this situation I'm still in, or has it reached a point where I need to walk away? Is it aging me? And if so, I encourage you to just tip tap yourself right on out that door. Whoo, and we made it to the end, y'all. We made it to the end for a second time. If you love the show, I would love for you to subscribe. I would love for you to rate us 5 stars, whatever platform you're watching it on. All of that helps. I also would love for you to become a Patreon member. Last month's bonus episode, I reviewed the Bruno Mars album. This month, I am doing the deep dive on Beyoncé and Taylor's early careers. And every month you get bonus content. So if you're into that, I encourage you to subscribe. And I know I missed last week. It's because I was sick. I'm going to try very hard not to miss any more weeks, but that sickness, it felt like it lasted forever. It went away. It came back. Ugh, the horror. It's gone now. I'm back now, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see you again. And I'll see you next time.